Hey guys, it's Matt. This is not a video about the painting The Son of Man, but we all know the painting with the green apple in front of this guy's head. And most people, I didn't know much about it, so one thing I was looking at led to another, had me look at this. But we'll cover this, and most people don't know exactly what this painting's all about and who painted it. But it led me to thinking again very deeply about how pretty much every single official story is bullshit. I mean, if this isn't the greatest evidence for number two in the three-step process, well, one and two. Number one, the entire world, one sees the entire world pretty much as a fraud or a deception to get a human being to do a certain thing. Step two is no normal world could possibly pull this off. And in this case, no normal world and things how they seem to be could create just total bogus backstories on basically every single official story, from what this painting's all about to the reasons for World War I and World War II. Everything's bullcrap. No normal world could pull that off. You know, we all see that by now, I hope. That leads you to think, well, what is this place we live in? And then there's a million possibilities, some sort of matrix, whatever. But of course, step three is, what is all this nonsense around you on the IMAX screen for to keep you away from yourself? So we can't talk about step two without talking about the more important step three. This is more of, and this is just one of thousands of examples we have now. So let me just get to the heart of, why I started talking about this. I was investigating this for another reason. I'm looking at, per recommendation from James, I'm looking at this incredible animated series called Interface. And I think I will touch on just a minute or two of Interface and ask that you watch a certain episode before I cover it in detail, say 2 days from now. So this was briefly covered in Interface, and this is what led me here. So basically, let's just go. Everybody, we should be familiar with what this is. The Son of Man is a 1964 painting by the Belgian surrealist René Magritte. I have no idea. I didn't take no French in high school. René Magritte. I'll just go, René Magritte. If you just do that, it works. Belgium is a pimple on the ass of France. It's little France. It's a self-portrait, but of course, guess what? If you look at it closely, the left eye is sticking out a little bit, so it's right eye symbolism. All right, let's just go down to the point of why I'm even making this video and why I'm using this as a lead-in to the bigger topic. All right, here we go. He uses the apple a lot in his other works. Magritte does. Now, he has a painting named, oh boy, Les Jeux des Morts, I don't know. It's owned by Paul McCartney, and of course, it inspired the Beatles to name their record company Apple Corps, and subsequently through this, Steve Jobs to name his company Apple Computer. Oh, sure. I mean, the backstory of absolutely everything. I mean, I don't want to be, I guess I shouldn't be so definitive, but 99% of everything you look into it, the backstory is complete bullcrap. I mean, how did this come to be? What is the Statue of Liberty? What it says in Wikipedia is absolutely not what it is. I mean, it's just never ending. To me, it's a reality that's devolving like a Mandela effect. I don't think people have come to me and said, Matt, no, it's always been this way. You just woke up to it. I don't think so. I really don't. I'm not saying that actually in 1969, actual men walked on the moon. I'm not going to go that far, but I think a lot more in our past was real, and we live in basically a devolving fluid reality / Mandela effect, where everything has broken down. It's like the concept when people talk about the reality overlay. The faux and the fake is just inserting itself in almost every area over what was once, you could say, maybe real. I think it's more of an evolution, de-evolution, things like that, versus, Matt, it's always been this way. You just didn't realize everything was fake when you were a child of the Matrix. That's possible. And, how are we going to know one way or another? This stuff is just beyond sci-fi. But, I see it as I just sense the world was much more real at one point, and we're going kind of along down the river, and in many ways we're not standing on the sidelines or on the bank for everything. In many ways we are going along with it, and a foe or a fake is replacing the real. It's like how you would move maybe a real society towards a digital society. Who knows what's going on? And this is just a tiny little example. But you research the Son of, look at me, even the title. Anybody screaming at me, Matt, the Son of Man. Of course, we live in a gigantic script. Nobody could plan this out like this. A gigantic script. A painting with a little bit of right eye symbolism in the apple just happened to be called the Son of Man. Of course, relates back to Genesis 1. Just happens to be bought by Paul McCartney, of course. And then that led, of course, per the official story, that led to them calling their Apple, their record company, Apple Corps. And then subsequently, of course, Steve Jobs then camped on that to name his company Apple Computer. And then, of course, there's these lawsuits back and forth between Apple and the Beatles. This script it's impossible to have planned all of this out. Is this some sort of matrix? So this is just, guys, this is not the example to lead with when talking about these big topics, but it's just what I was looking at the time. And I'm like, okay, once I've looked into 10,000 backstories and like 10,000 out of 10,000 just scream out at you as total bullshit, then it's time to just kind of make a definitive statement that basically every backstory pretty much ever delivered in Wikipedia, well, that's pretty definitive. We don't want to go that far. But, something benign, like if I look into who Johnny Appleseed was, the Johnny Appleseed, whatever that legendary figure, whatever he did, if I look into who he is that backstory going to be bullshit? If I look into the Alamo, I mean, it's a devolving. If I look into what the Alamo is, based on what I know about reality, I'll expect there to be some real elements, but I'll expect it almost every 10 years I look at it to be devolving into a bullshit story where maybe once we get 50 years from now or 100 years from now, whatever it said about whatever topic, the Alamo will not be anywhere near what has taken place. We're kind of still in that middle ground where they're just devolving every single official story into some sort of fiction. And I don't know how this is happening. It's buttons and levers we don't understand, and it's fascinating. Let's just bounce over here. I'll show you the other painting. And again, one more bullcrap backstory. How an M painting led to Apple Computer. Oh boy. Belgian artist René M. Belgian is a pimple on the ass of France. Says here, McCartney was in the process of setting up a new business with his fellow Beatles. Oh yeah, sure. That anticipated electronics, film publishing, and retail divisions. Not to mention a record label. Come on. A bunch of bullshit. The backstory on everything is bullshit. Okay, this is the painting. The inspiration, says, behind the Beatles' Apple Corps, and thus Steve Jobs' Apple Computer stemmed from this. Oh, sure. Yeah. This is why would a young Paul McCartnney, I don't want to get into the whole Mike thing, who it's Billy. We'll leave that aside for now. That's fascinating on its own. We'll leave that bizarre set of circumstances aside for now. We'll just assume it's Paul McCartney. So a young Paul McCartney, he wouldn't be interested in this piece of shit. Look, what's nothing? What is this? It's all because the script of this reality needs to be delivered. And it's 100 million times more impossible to coordinate than any normal people could pull off. Paul McCartney would never be interested in this piece of shit. And then this led to Apple, the Apple Corps, and then the whole label for the big. Come on. Why does it have to have some weird, creepy backstory that makes sense to them, or potentially that ultimately will make sense to those who can see? Is it just for them? No, it's also for those eventually like us who will see. But look at this painting. and just first graders would scribble shit out would be better than this. And then, of course, then this makes the painting world famous, and it probably sells for hundreds of millions of dollars at Sotheby's and all this bullshit. Anyway, enough on that. I should have mentioned this right off the bat, but what we looked at a few videos back, in terms of backstory, how did this come to be? What does Wikipedia say? What does the official narrative say the Statue of Liberty is? What does the official narrative say about this or that? Remember a few videos back, as I looked into the backstory of Troy University, the university opened for 3.5 years, the whole story about this building and what it was there for and how it was torn down, it just all starts to fall apart. And this is very similar to what the architectural researchers find. Oh, here's this amazing building, and it was up for 14 years before they tore it down. And I've covered buildings like that. I forget the name of the building. There was one building right around Wall Street that was, at the time, of course, the story or the script is always the same. It was one of the most incredible buildings when it was built. It was one of the tallest buildings in New York when it was built, and then was ripped down, I remember, 14 years later. But it's not just the architecture. I'm saying when you look into the backstory or the official story, if you go deep enough on almost everything, is complete bullshit. I mean, no real world could pull this off. Go look at how Microsoft came to be and that bullcrap story, and it's dealing with IBM and how Intel came to be, and some of my favorite stories about IBM, the biggest computer company in the world for 40 years. They just couldn't take an extra 6 months to get their personal computers with the right operating system. They had to farm everything out to Microsoft and made them a $300 billion company. And then they had to farm out to Intel to construct the chip because they couldn't get it done. If they would have just waited 6 more months, then Intel became a $100 billion company. And they had to farm the operating system was the DOS prompt. Like IBM couldn't come up with a DOS prompt. That just was beyond. A little DOS prompt and the simple DOS operating system of 76 or 78, that was beyond what IBM. They had to give everything to Microsoft, put everything in the hands of Microsoft, and then you have, because they couldn't wait 6 months. Well, Matt, who were they afraid of? Why was the need for IBM to rush out their personal computer? They were terrified of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, who just got out of the garage. Yeah, who was taking the market with Apple II. Just couldn't wait 6 more months. They had to give the world away to Intel and give the world away to Microsoft. It's all part of the script, guys. It's all bullcrap. I don't know how it pulls it off, but I don't buy any of it anymore. And thanks to Bill for sending me this. And he actually pointed out, he actually said the story behind this, even though they're talking to the guy that supposedly designed it, it just comes across as complete bullcrap. But there's some interesting things here to touch on. Why is the Apple logo bitten? The original from the manual depicted more of a painting of Isaac Newton sitting under the apple tree. And it says here, Apple logo first designed by Ron Wayne, co-founder of Apple Computer, blah, blah, blah. It depicted Sir Isaac Newton sitting under an apple tree with a poem. All right. A tribute to his discovery of gravity. Well, that backstory is bullcrap. But how far back do you want to go? The whole story, I mean, there isn't any, actually, I can't think of a more bullcrap story than the whole Sir Isaac Newton backstory about an apple landing on someone's head and him coming up with the idea that there must be this force called gravity, then starting to work out the mathematical models. The one thing about the story of Sir Isaac Newton, I'm sorry, I'm going to take the sir away. The one thing about Isaac Newton that I agree with is he probably, from everything I know, he probably was a math genius. I think he created calculus. I mean, you'd have to be some sort of math genius. And that's probably what he was. If you can create the math so you can fool people into a model or map of the solar system and getting people to believe it's something that it's not, using impossible math, he's probably one of their heroes for that reason. But then it gets into, it was it a tribute to a certain community, and then it evolved into just black with the bite. And again, this article is more about why is there a bite in it. There are many theories about the logo, and of course it gets into, there's always has to be this legend and lore and false stories, and they're already trying to mix up the backstory, but then they have to insert this fake legend and lore to get it even more muddied up, to muddy the waters even more. So let's get right down to the heart of this guy is supposed to be interviewing the guy that designed the logo with the bite. What does the bite in the apple represent? Okay? And he says, well, I'm probably the least religious person. So Adam and Eve didn't have anything to do with it. No, I'm sure. No, Genesis 1, this creepy table, the bite out of it, that had nothing to do with it. Yeah, it's already screams bullcrap. The bite of knowledge sounds fabulous, but that's not it. Oh, yeah, sure. And there's a whole lot of other lore about it. Okay, let's introduce all the bullcrap lore to muddy the waters even more. Turing, as in Alan Turing, the famous supposed father of computer science, who committed suicide in the early 50s, was British and was accused of being of that lifestyle, which he was. He was facing a jail sentence, so he committed suicide to avoid it all. So I heard one of the legends being that the colored logo was a homage to him, Alan Turing. The guy's talking about the legends regarding his own logo, like two guys would discuss it on the corner of Haight and Ashbury. It just doesn't make sense. People think I did the colored stripes because of that flag. And that was something people really thought for a long time. The other really cool part was that apparently Alan Turing, killed himself with a cyanide-laced apple. Anybody see the problem in that sentence? The really cool part. Yeah, that's really cool. When if a real guy was persecuted that had that sort of impact on the war, he would have never said it's cool that he killed himself with a cyanide-laced apple. Maybe you could say cool if it was like 2000 BC, but, in your grandfather's era, just to use the word cool is sick, but let's just continue. I mean, does that lend something to the credibility of that story? And then I found Alan Turing's favorite childhood story was Snow White, where she falls asleep forever for eating a poison apple to be woken up by a handsome prince. Thanks for the back end of that story, guys. We had no idea. Anyway, when I explain the real reason why I did the bite, it's kind of a letdown. But I'll tell you, I designed it with a bite for scale. Yeah, right. So people get that it was an apple, not a cherry. Oh yeah, of course. It had nothing to do with Genesis 1, fall of man, this painting comes in. No, I had to show the proper bite of a mouth on it so people would think it's not a cherry. Who would possibly buy this bullshit? Also, it was kind of iconic about taking a bite out of an apple, something that everybody can experience. What? I'm making a certain hand symbol here, like you don't even want to see it. It goes across culture. You don't know. It's crude. It goes across cultures. Yeah, everybody in any culture could take a bite. I mean, what the F is this? If anybody ever had an apple, he probably's bitten into it. Oh, no. Who would give an interview or conduct an interview like this? Just like Bill said, it just screams bullcrap. It can't even be faked properly. It was after I designed it that my creative director, he's the designer. The designer as a creative director? It doesn't make any sense. And didn't he design it? They're not going to have a creative director just coming out of the garage. Couple guys, right? Whatever. The whole Apple backstory is bullshit. Will you know, there's a computer term called byte, he said, B-Y-T-E. And I was like, you're kidding, dude. There's a computer term called byte, and I just designed an apple with a byte out of it, so it perfectly relates to Genesis 1 and bytes of computers. And the guy who supposedly here they say partial founder of Apple Computer didn't know there was a term called byte. It's anybody, per the sound of my voice, buying, he didn't know there was a term called byte. And he's labeled, it says, let me just finish. It was like perfect, but it was coincidental that it was also a computer term. You're fucking kidding me. At the time, I had to be told everything about basic computer terms. Okay, let's read that again. At the time, I had to be told everything about basic computer 101. He didn't even know how to plug it in. Well, let's go up and see what it says about this guy. Oh, Apple logo was first designed by Ron Wayne, who just gave the interview, co-founder of Apple Computer. He's co-founder, according to this, of Apple Computer, or let's just, one of the first few guys. Didn't know what a byte was. Yeah, okay. We've had enough of this. Total and utter bullshit. I remember this clip when I was researching the band Tool for a video maybe about a year ago, where the lead guitarist of Tool is asked to explain why they chose the 7-pointed star, why they feature the 7-pointed star or the heptagram so prominently in everything Tool does. And listen to the bullcrap answer. He just dances around it. And the 7-pointed star, guys, the occult association with it is off the charts. We'll talk about it on the back end a bit. I'm no expert on it. But to say what he says here, oh, the cops used it, I mean, you've got to be kidding me.
It's a 7-sided star, which is a symbol of, it's a really positive symbol in sacred geometry. All the cops have it. You see it used over, generations of it coming out, and it always, for the most part, comes out positive, and that's why we picked it. And then I took it and I opened it up for the Tool Army because I wanted to try to make it inviting. So that's why I opened spaces there, and actually stole that from a Holy Mountain. They had like a 21-sided star, but it was open at the bottom. I was like, oh, that's really cool, So there you go. Yeah.
That's it. There you go. It's no big deal. We could have picked any symbol. Just was basically picked out of a hat, just a random. We could have gone with anything. This is no big deal. No. You look into it for 1 minute. The occult nature of this symbol, it goes back to elven magic. It goes back to the Kabbalah. It goes back to something called the Seal of Babylon. I mean, this band has been accused, at least one member of this band has been accused. I don't know if the guy was in the room with him, but there's a story that came out. He summons demons of some kind. So at least, see, the outward minions on behalf of the screen, they can never be honest about any sort of backstory that's all important. It would at least be a little bit honest if the guy was asked about the 7-pointed star, which is the heptagram, to just say, well, listen, it's incredibly meaningful to us. It would take 2 days to explain the meaning. It's just rooted in ancient tradition, and I can't explain it here in an interview. Each person gets it's a minute for the interview questions. At least that would be somewhat honest, letting the audience believe there's something really deep rooted to it that he just doesn't have time to explain. At least that, but don't give me that bull crap. Oh, the cops use it, and I saw this other star, and we just adopted it, and we think they can have a really good positive effect. Come on, just be honest, or at least be somewhat honest and say the meaning is too much for me to explain to you right now. At least that would be honest. I mean, but Game of Thrones, the prominent feature is the 7-pointed star, but not the, I guess, free form where you don't take your pencil up. You just draw the 7-pointed star by keeping your pencil attached to the paper. It's the 7-pointed star with the triple vector. You can isolate 3 vectors inside. That's in Game of Thrones. That's no coincidence that's they didn't just pick that symbol because it looked good. Again, I'm no expert at this, but Levette could probably speak to it. The nature of this symbol is it would make the hair stand up on the back of your head. And the guy's like, cops use it. Come on. But this is always the way it is. This example is one of 100,000, if we had enough time, where the outward presentation of what we're told something important, or a corporate logo, or, if I just came to me, I know it's a big Mandela effect for many people, but if you had the old CEO of Volvo, and you say, why did you use the male symbol Mars in the logo? He would give you some bullshit, or she would give you some bullshit. I guess he would give you some bull crap that he wouldn't talk about the alchemical nature or of the power of that symbol. It would always be bull crap. And now I guess the purpose of this video is almost every single backstory or official story is bull crap. Everyone? Yeah, pretty much everyone. Now, I can't do a story on BS backstories and official stories without covering one of my favorites, my all-time favorite is the Eye of Providence. And no matter what website you go to, Wikipedia, it's all the same bullcrap. This is from Business Insider. And you want to laugh? I mean, Business Insider, they all say the same thing. So, the seal, the great seal of the United States on the back, and what is that eye on the back of the dollar bill, the Eye of Providence? So, I mean, it's all bullcrap how it presents the seal, whether you look at Business Insider or any other official source. Stephen C. B.S. Bull. The pyramid is a sign of strength and survival and long lasting. And that's showing that the new nation, is going to survive and last a long time. Stephen Bullock, where'd you get that genius explanation? And it's built on 13 different steps, meaning the 13 new states, the 13 former colonies. Now, this ridiculous explanation, you'll see it actually mentions Freemasonry coming up. It goes farther. This is actually first grade. Most just give you the kindergarten version. I at least appreciate this gives you the first grade. So the pyramid, the sign of strength. And it has no roots to ancient mysticism or the occult. That's just what conspiracy theorists will put through. I mean, it's just a sign of strength. They could have picked anything. They could have picked an oak tree, or they could have picked anything. And the 13 different steps represents the 13 new states. No, the 13 states were initially carved into the new territory because of the occult significance and the power they believe to be behind the number 13. You see, it's the other way around. It's not because of the states. It was a few years later that the Freemasons started using the eye. Somebody was like, we should use that. They just saw it on the Great Seal of the United States. Oh, yeah. No, it was the other way around again. See, it's always the other way around. It's always the inversion. Some think it's the Masons' way of projecting their own watchful power, but it's actually the opposite. Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, okay. Stephen C. Bullock is going to talk again. The all-seeing eye of God was designed for Freemasons. It was designed for Freemasons and was designed to be a message to themselves. We are being watched over. Therefore, we need to live up to the standards of not only religion, but also Freemasonry. Freemasons were reminding themselves to keep their own strict moral standards, not push their values on the general public. Other conspiracies say the eye on the seal of the United States, the Great Seal of the U.S. and the dollar means the government is always watching us. But again, its real meaning goes back to a higher power. Stephen C. Bullock's going to talk again. It's supposed to, the eye in the pyramid, it's supposed to represent America being watched over by God, America being created under God's watchful eye. But he would ever say, what God? What God? What are you talking about? So how did the symbol get so tarnished? Why is it tangled in so many conspiracy theories? I'll tell you, because none of any first grader can see right through the official story. It's complete bullshit. I mean, and actually, in some of these other websites, I just found this one, guys. It'll talk about how it then morphed into Columbia and the Eye of Providence and the Eye of God watching over the settlers as they go out west to throw every Indian on the Trail of Tears. I mean, guys, what else do you need to say? I had to go back to this or the Statue of Liberty or this is my all-time favorite BS backstory. And for that, I probably could have found a better website, but I just wanted to end the video with that. Thanks, guys. You could actually do a whole YouTube channel just looking at bullcrap backstories, and there would be never a time when the topics would be exhausted. Thanks. Oh, guys, coming up is a few clips from the animated series Interface. I think it was James that wanted me to look at episode 23, and I was blown away by episode 23, so I've almost at this point looked at all episodes up to 23. I'm going to cover this in detail. The amount of truth drop or symbolism is off the charts, and you might want to watch this episode 23 before I cover it in detail, so the link is in the description.
Your dissociation from reality. Focus, Henrik. You have the answers. All you need to do is look within. all haunted souls remain on Earth.